Good evening and welcome to UK Crime Book Club. This evening I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Herrington, and Tom's book, his debut novel Black Toad, is out now. Hi Tom, thank you for joining us.
Hello, evening. Thank you very much for inviting me. That's very kind of you.
So would you like to start by introducing yourself and your book?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I'm Tom Herrington. I only recently I started writing a couple of years ago, almost by accident, probably in fact very much by accident, and I wrote this book which is called Black Toad, which has just been. I just have loved doing it, and it's been a load of fun. It was based on a true story, but so loosely based on the true story. But that's part of the fun of it. And what I discovered is that to write allows you to have so much more fun than you imagined when you thought about literature, when you thought how boring it was. And that's what I've very much enjoyed about it. So yes, it's a thriller. It's based in Cornwall, and it's a revenge thriller, is what it is actually. So it's slightly more nichey because I have no education in writing.
It's very dark, isn't it? I mean, I love the darkness of it. I think we'll come back to sort of that. But what sort of gave you that idea of the sort of inspiration behind sort of Black Toad? Because you said it's like loosely based on a true story. So did you sort of hear a story and then think, I'm going to write a book about that, or what was the process?
The truth is, and I have to be mindful not to give away spoilers, although probably if anyone's watching, they probably have read it anyway, is that my mum and dad, they initially were down in Cornwall, and they lived next door to some brilliant people, some rather inspirational, we'll call them, people. And when we moved away from Cornwall, we then went back all the time for holidays. Mum would take me back on a holiday a lot, and we'd still go and visit these people, the Hawkeys, the antagonists of Black Toad. And I've rather awfully just set them up. They're not like that at all. They were lovely, but the lady, the main antagonist in the book, she told me this story when I must have been about 8 or 10 years old, about an urchin that would come to her window and how he was homeless. And now, as a 10-year-old, this is the most horrifying thing you can try and compute. So for the rest of my life, I just carried it around in the back of my mind. You know, whenever you thought that times were grim or hard, you know, I would just make it even more anxious for myself by thinking about this horrible story about. The story that Gwen Hawkey told me about the kid that just seemed to knock on her window and ask for cake. And through university and through art school, I just embellished this thing and I made it worse and worse and worse. I made the whole story always worse. And then I remember during like art school days feeling very, being very arrogant and thinking, well, I'm going to make a movie of this. And an excellent soundtrack. It was all great because Tarantino was all I was watching. And then I put it aside. Latterly, in the last 5 years, I'd just done a degree in geography and climatology with the Open University and really enjoyed the kind of discipline of doing work. And when it finished, I was left with a massive hole in my life again, where I didn't have much to do apart from perhaps play internet Scrabble or some just crap like that, really. And it occurred to me, oh, now you could actually, having learned discipline through OU, write that story and actually really make it into a proper story. So I did. I started with just a couple of paragraphs and came home and showed my fiancée Maria what I was doing. And then it just went from there. And I just kept on writing and never stopped writing for the last now 24 months or so.
That's amazing. Because I did Open University as well. I did my degree through the Open University. And I must admit, I finished mine in 2017. And I've definitely sort of felt that sort of loss, I think you feel, because you have to be really disciplined, don't you, to do it?
Yeah, really. At first, it was so hard to do, and then at the end of it, I was just so used to, every day I must write 45 minutes of this or read an hour's worth of this, and to the point that it just became so habitual that when I no longer had it, I contemplated doing a master's of it, but couldn't face another academic paper to read or write.
No,
So the idea to go
same.
creative. What did you do?
I did like humanities and art history.
Oh, you see, that's
I really
cool.
liked. It was really great, and mine took me 15 years because I did it when I had 3 kids. So, but yeah, it was tough, but I'm glad I did it. So yeah, maybe I should write my book. That's maybe what I should do.
Well, no, because you're doing this, you see. So, whatever you do to fill the hole, as long as it's kind of filling that gap and making use of the spare time, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So let's have a chat about the characters, because they are pretty grim, aren't they? I think I said in my review they were League of Gentlemen crossed with This Country, because they're quite humorous in a really dark way.
Yes, and so I think that anybody that reads it must. Well, they don't have to do anything, but it'd be useful for people to understand that I have had no education in writing at all, and am not particularly well read remotely. Perhaps Rupert, and so in a roundabout way, it was really, really exciting to be able to do it because I had free reign to do it. So when I was creating the characters, or when I was writing the characters, there was nothing stopping me creating them at the same time. So they were allowed to be as grim as my brain wanted them to be, and as manipulative and as fun. And the writing of the characters, I think, is, and still is, because I'm doing the second part now, is the most exciting part about it. I really like creating these people that you just, whenever I go out or whenever I'm in a place, I just steal bits of people and just mold them together into these plasticine, hideous sort of gargoyles, really, that I can then keep and use and regurgitate as my own characters that people will then write about. Because you've seen some of the reviews are really awful. Some people really didn't like them at all. But that's great.
Well, I mean, they're not likable, though, are they? That's the thing, is they're not supposed to be likable. I mean, we're not talking like Darling Buds of May or anything like this.
No, they were designed because I couldn't work out when I first set out, because, and I'm mindful I don't want to spoil the book. What I really needed to do was to try and invent mechanisms to allow the antagonist to end up doing what ultimately he did. Yeah. So I needed to create these people that at first we were sort of invited in and we laughed at, they're funny country bumpkins. But eventually they became worse and worse and worse, to the point that whatever happens at the end of the book, and as bad as it is, you're still kind of siding with the protagonist rather, because those people are so grim.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? And I think I said to you early on that when I was reading it, that I thought that maybe one of the characters was a red herring. And I'm not going to say who it was, but you definitely sort of lead people down the path, which I think is really good, because I was like, oh, maybe I don't think this person's as bad as them. And then you just go along and you think, oh yeah, actually they are. They are really that bad.
Exactly. And that's fun in itself, because the character in question. Well, yeah, because I've read books, and you probably have. Well, you will have, because of your interests in crimes and thrillers, where you're introduced to people at the 11th hour, and that's a rip-off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't you think that's just a swizz? I just think I might as well have started and given you the clues, and almost given too much food and too many seeds for you to go, oh no, it's impossible. And then it genuinely was. It was just that awful.
I think the thing is I think most people who read crime want to be able to, even if they don't solve it, be able to come away from it at the end and say, oh yeah, I can see how you did that. Because I think you're absolutely right. For me, if I read a book and then it turns out to be someone's third cousin 3 times removed, who featured in the first chapter for about 3 seconds, and you think, well, that's not game, is it? The game is with thrillers, is that you have, or crime fiction, is that you have a chance as the reader, you have a chance to solve the mystery of, you know, and even if you don't do that, I always think it's a bit of a swizz if I do guess it, because I think, well, that's too easy. I don't want to guess it. And I didn't guess it in this one. I didn't guess the twist in this one. So
you didn't get it. Good. No, see, that's lovely.
No.
And what I love is that I think there are enough kind of clues and pointers to the point at which people would get it. And then they go, and then they turn the page and I'm like, well done. You got it, but it's not about that at all. And it went off in a completely different direction after the point that they'd worked it all out. And I loved that. That was part of the kind of ignorant fun of writing a crime story for me, is that I didn't have to follow kind of rules and thought, right, okay, yeah, you've worked it out. Well done. And now we're going to have a completely different party. That was a lot of fun.
So how did you, because obviously it is a crime, but it is dark. And I think it almost is there is sort of like horror sort of elements in it as well, isn't there? So are you sort of drawn to that sort of, you said you weren't particularly well read, but do you like sort of horror, the genre horror, or?
Yes and no. So I've got the reasons for no is because I find that it's really never as good as you want it to be. I can't think that I've watched a horror film and thought that it was awful, or then, because you're dealing with something that we know inherently isn't true, unlike crime, unlike a murder. That's ghastly. It's the worst thing you can think of. When it's supernatural or paranormal, if having studied a degree in science, you're like, oh, yeah, I just don't buy it. So for the horror thing, I think that if it's going to be used properly, it has to be psychological horror. It has to be kind of something that's tangible to a human, that could happen to a human, as opposed to supernatural. But as I've told you, I'm writing this Regency Christmas ghost story, which I'm serializing at the moment.
Yeah.
And that has been to challenge myself to be able to write something that is technically far tighter than Black Toad was, which was, it is quite loose, isn't it? It's quite like, here's a man doing his own thing.
But no, yes, but I like that. And I think that it sort of is quite it's a creative book, isn't it? It's not you're not going to pick up another Black Toad. And I love the setting. Can we talk about the setting? Because obviously,
yes,
Cornwall, and you're gonna have to remind me of the name of I know it's Tree, because everything in Cornwall is tree.
Yes, it's Tribrower.
And
it's a fictional village. And originally, what was it called? So it's based on Indian Queens, which is like an old kaolin mining town. You know, it's just for housing for people that worked within the industry. But my editor said, no, it has to be completely fictional. You just make it up, invent the place, but keep real places around it. So so people are like, oh, it must be near there. I've probably seen it. I might have heard of it. You know, I think I went there once, but they didn't. So Tribrower. So we used, or I tried to use, I'm sure that the proper people waving the flag of St. Piran will call me up on this, but we tried to use the technical ways of inventing the village name. So it should translate rather like Cape Fear as village of hate or village of terror. So Tribrower, that's what it should mean. I'd never go on to say it, but anyone that wanted to dig in will find that that's what it means and says. And St. Crest, the one at the other end of the village, is apparently something very, very beautiful.
That's really interesting, because I think the court. I know when I was reading the reviews, some people didn't like the Cornishness of it, but I really did like that. I like the sort of the speech and the sort of the linguistics of because I live in the neighbouring Devon, and I've spent most of my life going on holiday to Cornwall, because obviously it's next door. I guess it felt very real to me. I could imagine them, saying what they said, and I mean, it's a bit like Devon though now. I mean, sadly, there isn't many people left who are that broad Cornish, Devonshire, because it's because of people move around more. And I've lived in Devon all my life, but I don't think I've particularly got a Devonshire accent at all. Whereas my dad is still quite broad Devonshire.
Okay.
But I think that is dying out across the generations, because I don't think people do have that accent so much anymore.
No, I mean, I notice it because I'm in Sussex these days. I notice it more if we do head west. Definitely, it's stronger and richer. But yeah, but I think that's, again, when you come back to those characters. If I were to have written this up here in East Sussex or Kent, those communities are dying out, and there are people in battle, and there's a couple of people who've still got a Sussex accent, which is. If you spelled it SOSSIGS, like Sussex, then it would sound just like that. But it sounds awful. But I'm going to start to have to look out onto the marshes to really find those people. And yes, it's a funny thing, and probably it does poke a little bit of fun. But there's something quite charming and heartwarming about it that is nice just to keep in the public domain as well, isn't there?
Yeah. How did you because the creation of the village, I think it, like that sort of, you said Village of Hate, definitely it's really atmospheric. The book is, you really sort of take the reader to this dark sort of, on this sort of edge of Bodmin Moor-y sort of Newquay sort of, it's Newquay isn't Indian Quains, it's actually between Newquay and Bodmin.
Yeah, it's just out nowhere. It's cool, it's great. We went last year. I really, really rather like it. I'm kind of slightly attached to it because the preaching pit is up there. They're just sort of, when Ken Loach does working class things, and he doesn't laugh at it. He wants you to understand what it's like to be there.
Yeah.
And if Ken Loach were to go to Cornwall, I think he would have to be drawn towards places like Indian Queens, because I've not been there enough to say there's, to really ratify what I mean by that. But you get to feel like it's just a normal place, normal people, normal struggles, and therefore you can really kind of create an environment where, on the whole and in the main, the characters all look after each other. So where it centers around that pub, where it centers around the Blue Rose, everyone in there's lovely. They all natter, they all chat. The gossip is a priority, and it's like the fulcrum to a place that on the outer edges are getting quite tatty and run down, and people it's not as wonderful as it seems. But in the center, at the pub, everybody's happy. It's sort of like maybe it's sort of a metaphor for real life pubs, isn't it? And real life places, in that at the pub, it's rather like Instagram, isn't it? So at the pub, everyone's happy, doing well. Yeah, I'm doing well. I've done this, and this. But when you leave, that you're going up to these houses and farmsteads and places where it's not all as it seems, really. And I quite like that.
I think that's actually, Cornwall is very much like that, because you have you have places like St Ives and Rock, which is very, very wealthy. Everybody goes there on their holidays. There's massive houses, but then you've got real poverty in places like St Austell and Camborne and those sorts of places that aren't, they aren't sort of lived in by, celebrity whatevers, with their big houses, and they don't, so I think there's places in Devon the same, Salcombe in Devon is sort of, they call it like London by the sea, or Chelsea by the sea, I think they call it, something like that. So so I think it's quite refreshing to have because quite often Cornwall can be romanticized in, as there's a lot of like romance books written in nice little beaches and stuff. So actually this is much more like a raw Cornwall.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want it to be we didn't need the Doc Martin kind of
exactly
that beautification of Port Isaac and things like that. You can it just seems to be like a good place to actually set something really kind of interesting. And that's why I went between Indian Queens and then to sort of Du Maurier's Moorland, and thought, we'll definitely stand on the shoulder of giants here and just have a crack at that, which is quite nice.
I love Jamaica, and it's one of my favourite books. The fact that you had that in there was, a real bonus as well. Can we talk about your protagonists, because they're interesting, aren't they? You can't say too much about them, but you can definitely give us a sort of a overview of like them, what they've come to do.
Someone described the protagonist as just, certainly for the first act and for the first third of the book, as just sort of an everyman, a journeyman, just kind of like really, there's something quite normal about him. And it is, but the holes are there. It's like, I read quite a lot of Fleming and read most of the Bond books for a couple of, perhaps it was over COVID actually, that I just got hold of those and read them, having been a lifetime fan of the James Bond franchise and stuff. And they're so much darker and more grim, and I quite like that there's definitely parts of the protagonist which are Bond-esque, the love of food and drink, and the kind of, it's definitely there on duty doing his work, or so it seems, because there's always room for a sort of a slightly wayward narrative, isn't there? But you're always questioning him, despite how normal he is, certainly in the first act.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe him.
No,
without giving too much away.
Yeah, it's a really tricky book to talk about without, like you say, without giving too much away. But he is a really interesting character, and as you go through the book, the sort of, because he basically is employed, isn't he, as a psychologist, to come and interview this family about a crime that happened many years before, and this young lad, Black Toad, has disappeared. So he disappeared and was never seen again, and it's sort of like a cold case, isn't it, what he's come to investigate?
Yeah, so the Devon and Cornwall police, the bods up at Truro have sent him down, go and interview these people. What do you think? It's interesting in that kind of misguided narration that from the start, that this is the setup, because my own therapist, she would not have had me. She wouldn't have gone to my house. She already told me this. She said, well, I wouldn't. So I've had to set up an explanation for perhaps why, a psychotherapist and a psychologist might have gone to other people's houses. But it is interesting that they're just trying that it's just a different line of kind of inquiry, as opposed to wheeling in a detective or a broken copper or any of like that. And as the sequel comes out and the universe of Black Toad becomes more expansive, it allows for even more fun to happen. But I don't want to really spoil it. But the use of having a psychologist / psychiatrist or therapist allows for kind of investigating people's minds and brains and picking them apart. And I think that certainly all the feedback has been, they've been very surprised after a point at how much the therapist did pick those people apart. Yeah,
it's really, I mean, it's tricky to talk about, but I really like the psychological element of it, because it's quite deep, isn't it? It's a lot deeper than when you think he's just going, it's superficially, he's going to investigate this crime that's happened before, and he's, really comes into the house, and he's sort of quite shocked by them, but he sort of keeps going back, doesn't he? And he sort of tries to sort of make a bit of a friendship with Wenna, and she sort of welcomes him in, but Jago, the son, is well, he's still sort of, he's, you know, an adult now, isn't he? And he's a strange one. They're all strange ones.
Yeah, they're all really grim, but they're not grim. They don't know they're grim, Karen.
No.
And this is the thing, and this is where I had to tread a really fine line, and where people who haven't perhaps got the text have been offended by it, is that it does look like we could be just, you know, taking them apart. They are very simple, but they're not simple. They're completely complicit in everything that's very, very bad. And they know that, but it's in their own little world. We only have to turn on the telly in the last few months to kind of recognize how people can be drawn into their own little world and believe that it's right. And so I think that I always feel sorry for Wenna and Jago. I don't really feel sorry for Eden, the third antagonist. And I do feel sorry for them. Not that not in a negative way, like, oh, poor you, but
no,
there's a fallibility about them that isn't their fault. That has just been sort of slightly historic, really.
Yeah, because I think I described Eden as heinous. I mean, he's really is a wrong one.
He's a piece of work for sure.
Yeah. How did you sort of, when you were sort of writing the book, did you want to explore different themes within the book that you wanted people to take away from it, or was it just the story that you wanted to write and then sort of those themes came out as you were writing?
I'm going to be honest with you and say there's a bit of both with that book. Certainly, I was mindful from the beginning that I wanted, and you'll have read the afterword, that the environmental metaphor was really important for me. I don't think it's necessarily important for anybody that reads it. If you don't want to pick up on it, you don't have to. But this idea of, that if we don't take kind of nature seriously, that it will come back and get us, and that is the revenge and the retribution. Is that you cannot just keep on just bashing away at the forests or bits and bobs like this. At nature, which has no voice, and so that's where the toad comes from. Is that so abused and troubled by a society as perhaps nature is, that at some point it's going to snap. It's just, there will be torrential rains, there will be wildfires, and there's nothing you can do because you asked for it. And so that I was always mindful that would be a major part of it, but exploring the characters was interesting. In the second one, which I've been doing now for about 6 months and is far more expansive and it is larger, I have deliberately set out, because there were mechanisms in the first book which I loved, like the vicar. I've set out to explore paganism, good old-fashioned Christianity, and the whole Bruderhof movement. So I'm really looking into kind of religion in the next one. Again, it's not going to play a huge part, but it's going to be very interesting in how the characters react to it.
Because yes, I mean, there's a lot more. It's not just a sort of your sort of standard crime, is it? There's a lot more going on, a lot more depth in the book. What did you sort of research sort of like the folklore sort of side of the book? Was that something that you knew about anyway, or was that something you sort of, again, it sort of came along as you wrote?
A lot of it came along as I wrote, but I don't think it was completely fly by seat. A lot of it would happen every morning just walking the dog. And so all of those elements, when an idea or a crumb of idea came into my head, either I had a kind of an idea about it in the first place and understood it, and then I would just then go deeper into the research of it to make sure that kind of it wasn't offensive, that it was correct, it was the right way of using that kind of instrument and tool. And both really. I think writing a book like that, it's quite organic, and it forever is changing. I surprised myself. I wish I could tell you here about what happens in the next one, because it blew my mind the other day. It was brilliant. It was excellent. But it's going to take a lot of research into. But it will work. It will work so well, and it will just, people will be like, oh, why? It's like, it'll be like worse than Game of Thrones and the Mick Herron on that.
But you obviously like the darkness and the sort of shocking element of the writing. Is it like when you're like, right, or does it just sort of come out like that? You just like...
No, because I don't want it to be gratuitous, and I don't want it to be predictable. Oh, that person's not gonna make it, or do that. Just there's always a moment when it just seems right. Okay, that's enough.
Just like a line.
And it's not. I don't want it to throw it around cheaply, like the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones. I don't want that to happen. But just you can have so much fun with the characters and the places and the people, because, again, I'm probably going to just labour on about this, because I've not had any creative writing like tuition, or I don't really, I've not been taught it, so I'm doing it my way, and in that it's quite fun. It's just entertaining myself on dog walks. I'm thinking, let's do that today, but how would you make it work? I don't know. I have to go back, and you're going to have to, in chapter 1, sow that seed, so to make that happen properly, like the cake, like the posting of the cake. I had to go back and put that posting part in. Although the angry postmaster was real, because I got him off a Google review.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Did you the thing is, like with the Game of Thrones episode as well, I'm still traumatized by that to this day. If you haven't seen that Game of Thrones episode, like, just be prepared for the Red Wedding, because it's a shocker. And I didn't see it coming. And I remember sitting there, my mouth open afterwards. But the thing is, it's very, if you do something like that, there are certain things that you can't go back on, aren't there? So, without giving any spoilers to Game of Thrones or your book, once that's happened, it's happened, and that's the end of it. And did you sort of feel that was? It's really difficult, but did you feel that the ending was? Did you always know it was going to end the way it did? I think is probably the best way of saying it without spoiling it.
Did I think it was going to end the way it was going to? I knew that what was going to happen would happen. Where I really struggled is what would happen to the protagonist, actually. And for a long time, he was headed for incarceration, and then that would have been quite normal, wouldn't it? Because what ends up happening is that you, as the reader, end up living with kind of moral questions, don't you?
Yeah.
And so, and can you justify it? And yes, I think. Well, I just don't. I mean, I can justify it. I'm with him, but
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, with a book, is that everybody will take something different for it, and everybody who reads it will take something different for it, whether you love a book or you hate a book, or if somebody will read it and think that it's one way, and I don't think anybody could read it and not feel some, what's even the word? I was gonna say, it's not like joy that it's happened, but it is like retribution, isn't it? There is something about. I don't think many people would come away from it and think, okay, but whether that's right or not, I guess, is a different question.
And that's the point, which is why we don't leave it up to other institutions to work out what is just in the end, which is why it went the other way. And then when you, yes, there's those last couple of pages are very, very simple and very plain, but so beautiful. You're like, oh, really? Okay, right. Okay, you did tell me at the beginning, but yeah. That's
Did you when you were writing the characters, particularly, like, did you find, because some of it is dark and some of it is, not pleasant to read, did you find that difficult to write? Was it like sometimes you had to like just walk away from that bit because it was, you're like, this is ick?
Yeah, all the time. And the only way that certainly with probably the part you're talking about that I could justify it was I needed to create a device for the whole story to unfold.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I hated it, and I ended up hating that character because of their doings. And
Yeah.
I properly hated it. I hated him. I hated doing it. And there were times when I walked away and I was in tears and I didn't really like it, and I thought it's just grim and people just think it's grim. But then there were times it's storytelling, and we need this device. And because not forgetting that environmental metaphor, I'm like, no, come on, this, like, we've got to be a bit serious about this, and sometimes it's going to take some very grim things for people to listen.
Yeah.
So yes, in the end it was justified. I didn't like it. No, don't like him at all. Horrible.
Do you think that made him even more unlikable because it was not pleasant writing it? That even made him worse in a way because you really disliked him too?
Yeah, no, I absolutely disliked him. I did. The whole thing was quite method, really. I went to the extent of getting pirate plates on my car. I had the little Kerno flags just put on my number plates as well. Everything. I really got involved with it, too involved with it, and really and I think that's a joy. It must be just writers must just have that all the time. But I loved the waking up thinking about them, walking around thinking about them, being them, talking like them, most of this is on dog walks, just with me and the Labrador.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I got completely into those characters, and to the extent that if you talk about that character, I could probably put myself back into his head and justify his doings.
Yeah,
and that's quite grim. But it needs to be so that it was completely tangible. So you can say, well, no, but I did it because, like, the whole way through, the three of them always is none of their fault, is it ever? It's not a fault.
No, it's always,
arguably isn't their fault, is it? Because the whole setup and the way that they've all ended up, perhaps it isn't there. They're victims of circumstance for sure.
Well,
Jago,
they're just let down by whoever, whatever.
Yeah, it's it's the curse of six toes, really.
So you've touched on a couple of times about your Christmas story. I mean, it's very different than the traditional Christmas story. Although I haven't read any yet because I'm not very good at only having bits. I like to read it all the way through. So I'm waiting for the whole lot because you've got it on Substack, haven't you? At the moment, you can subscribe. Did you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
So what I thought I would do, I'm writing the sequel to Black Toad, which is big and it's huge and it's become more expansive and bigger than I expected it to be. So I wanted to just keep the momentum, because I was very surprised at the momentum that this book's had of just being an unsigned author, and it's gone really, really well. So I thought it would be lovely just to keep people involved and interested. And I'll just knock out a quick little just a little short story just to keep people interested, and it's ended up being a not so little novella. It's about 25,000 words by the time it's finished, and it's a Regency ghost story, rather like in the Dickensian manner, and this idea of kind of telling ghost stories around Christmas, which we sort of lost that kind of tradition a little bit. Everyone's going to still wheel out kind of Krampus and the the Christmas Carol at Christmas, but in that vein, just kind of sit around telling ghost stories at Christmas is a lovely thing. So what I did is try and create like a bit of a prequel to the Black Toad. It stands alone. It doesn't matter if you haven't read either or either, but if you have read Black Toad, you'll like it because it's so much fun, because it's the same families. The Hawkeys, the Biddles, the Merlins are all there. They're all walking the same lands. The church is the same. It's all still there. And without giving too much away, we will understand why the antagonists of Black Toad, who are so beautiful, their ancestors in Cursed Inn are such lovely people, but we'll understand how they came to be cursed. And it's just quite fun. It's just like keeping that universe alive, but in a very different way. It's almost it's a bit of a placeholder, perhaps, but it's much better than that. The trouble with it is that I don't think it's as much fun as Black Toad, because it can't be, because I've written it in the Regency style. There's no room for kind of flippancy and humour and dual timelines and any of that nonsense, because it's supposed to be in 1811, and that's exactly where it stays.
So 25,000 words is not it's not a small sort of undertaking, is it?
No, it became bigger, but I think I had to do the same with the first book. I wanted to do it justice for people who've really, really liked reading the first book, and yeah, it's good. You know, I surprised a lot of people when I wrote the first book, and this second one is good enough for me to say, okay, look, I'm going to put it out there as well and stand by it and say, look, that's worth your money spending and reading. Did you
ever expect when you started writing it that you would go on to write 2 more? Is there going to be will there be another after the sequel, or you don't know yet?
Yeah. So the Black Toad is definitively a trilogy. Now it has a prequel by accident as well, so it'll be 4, won't it?
Yeah.
The next one is called King Green, and the third one, my daughter and I, we were earlier in the year up at Loch Fyne in Scotland, and it certainly starts there. I don't know where it ends yet, but there is. It's so good. I'll write to you about what happens, but I've had to read a bit of Agatha Christie to work out how to do to really understand how to do sort of a locked room murder.
Well, that's good. I've got hundreds of those behind me, so
right. Because they're hard to kind of get wrong without being cliched, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think the thing is there are real die-hard locked room fans as well. There's there.
Oh, is there? That makes it worse.
Yeah. So if you've got any plot holes, they will find them. Oh, no pressure.
Well, no, because I think that in Black Toad there's no plot holes. Because I watch telly and I hate it when there's plot holes on things which people are telling you the new greatest series, and it's so weak. You don't need to have holes. There shouldn't be holes in these things, should there?
No, I think I like it to be all sort of like nicely sort of tied up, and What's surprised you being an author? What's sort of been one of the things that you sort of didn't expect?
I think I was very naive about how hard it is to try and get into the industry. If you want to go trad, I just am amazed because well, I mean, you've read it and it's good. I think it's really great. I'm very happy with it, but I can't get anyone interesting to really pick it up. I find that very, very peculiar. But I'm guessing that there's just so many people. I guess it's really quite saturated. Inboxes are a problem. What else? What else do I think? I'm surprised that I genuinely wasn't that interested in reading, and now I am. But it took me to write to want to read, as opposed to it took me to read to want to write. So
it's quite unusual, because generally writers are readers. I mean, it's you're probably in the minority of that. Generally when I ask that question, people go, "Oh, I've always loved reading," and and then I wanted to write a book. So it can, but it's quite interesting to hear someone who say, actually, I wasn't a reader. I quite like that.
Yes, it did surprise me to the extent that today, for real life, I have to drive around and do bits and bobs in my job. So it's a good excuse to get hold of a bit of Audible. And the last couple of weeks, I've listened to some relatively good stuff. And today, I thought I'd really kind of bite the bullet and do something big and classic. It's quite boring, but I've just started Les Miserables.
Oh wow, that's a whopper.
67 hours ahead of me, Karen.
Yeah.
But I'll see how I get on. I mean, genuinely, that was really hard work, those first 5 chapters on the way down the A21 today.
I started War and Peace about 6 years ago, and I think I got to about the 3rd chapter. But there's people on Instagram who do like read-alongs, and you can basically do like a chapter a week or 2 chapters, and you read it all the way through the year.
Yeah.
And then you sort of talk about it, because I think that makes it because I mean, it's a chonk, isn't it? I mean, it's a doorstop. Les Mis.
Well, yeah, this one looks like a doorstop, but yeah, I'm excited to have a go at it. And as I say, you know, it comes back to the idea that I wouldn't even have bothered had I not written a book.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be reading listening to Victor Hugo today in my car. I'd be listening to Nicky Campbell moaning.
I love audiobooks. I think that would you like Black Toad to be an audiobook?
Yeah, I'm going to record it myself.
Are you?
Yeah, because the all the research I do is either there's lots of opportunities to have it done on AI. In fact, Amazon had invited me to do it for free on AI, and it's just a bit glitchy. I just think that nobody knows the book as well as I do, so I'm going to really try and record it and do it. But I need to make myself a cupboard and then staple a quilt to the wall.
You're going to have to perfect that Cornish accent as well.
Yes, that's fine, but I'm not doing it today.
I won't make you. Sort of who's inspired you to write? Because you said you're not particularly a reader, but something's obviously inspired you to write. So for
yes, and I don't think it's naff. Perhaps people will think it's naff. This is another thing that surprised me about being an author, is that it's a bit of a snobby world, isn't it? But anyway, what happened is that I was going to a trade show in London and stopped at my local petrol station, which is it's quite Black Toad in itself. Some of the characters are in there, it's a special place. There is a little box that sells books for £1 in the petrol station. And there was a copy of Bob Mortimer's Satsuma Complex.
Oh yeah.
And it was £1. And I thought, oh, go on, try and read something instead of looking at your phone again. You're on a train, you've got a chance. So I thought, oh yeah, I paid the man for my diesel, drove down to the car park, parked the car, got on the train, and I'd bought this, and so bought a copy of the Satsuma Complex. And I read it in 2 days. And it was just such fun. And what I loved about it was that it was irreverent. It wasn't clever. It wasn't off-putting like everything I've ever started to read. Like now today, trying to read Victor Hugo, right? But at the time, it was completely accessible, and I thought, oh, I could also write a book, and it allowed me to do it and just go wild with it and not be constrained by anything, and just go, right, okay, I'm going to do that. That's going to happen. That's going to happen to these people. This is going to happen to that person, and this is how they're going to speak and how they're going to look and how they're going to be. And it completely allowed me to be creative and say, okay, you can write a book. And I read it in 2 days, and probably 4 days later, I'd written that first kind of 5 or 6 paragraphs.
Wow. So, well, if Bob Mortimer's watching, I mean, I'm not sure he is, but I'm sure he would be, as a creative, because I mean, he's comedian, he always writes, but writing a novel is quite different to writing comedy, I imagine.
Yes, but they're both the same, aren't they? I mean, I don't know if you've read Satsuma Complex.
I haven't, also, no.
I've had people that have read Black Toad mostly as a comedy. And it's there, isn't it? It's just for fun. It's so nice. And it was so nice to do because it just wasn't pretentious. It wasn't hard work. I'm sure that no one wants to look at it at any of the literary prizes. And I don't really care, because what I really care about is people got to read it and enjoyed a good story. And actually what a lot of people have told me, probably because they bought it because I wrote it and they were like, oh, I'm just going to help Tom out because, I know him and it's probably a bit shit, but we'll read it. So many people have come back and gone, I really liked reading. I forgot I liked reading. And that's what happened to me with the Bob Mortimer thing. Because I didn't know I liked reading, because there's so many distractions in the world of phones and everything else. And you pick up something and go and read this. This is on the front table of Waterstones. And you try and it's, I just can't do it. The Satsuma Complex was just a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, I think I worked in libraries for 18 years, and I'm really not a book snob at all. And I firmly believe that people should read whatever the hell they like, to be honest, because there is lots of snobbery around, Mills and Boon and things like that. And but the people that used to come in and read, sort of 8 or 9 of those a week, they got real joy out of reading that. So it doesn't matter whether you read the newspaper, whether you read Mills and Boon, whether you read Les Mis, whether you read, I don't know, a scientific textbook. It's whatever you want to read.
Exactly that. It's exactly true, isn't it? But it's a bit like the whole kind of art galleries thing. It's to people who have not been allowed. It's not really allowed, is it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with it. And as much as now that I've written this, and now I'm struggling to kind of get loads of people to read it, because I think it's worthy of that. It's only now that people like Bob Mortimer and Richard Osman are getting on my nerves, because
I think there's probably a lot of people who Richard Osman and Bob Mortimer get on. I think it's quite difficult. I mean, I'm not in the publishing industry, but I'm sure there's probably people watching who are. And but I know that from talking to other authors on here, that it is difficult. It's very rare for you to for your book to be picked up and taken off. And quite often people will go down other routes of being published because it doesn't get picked up, and then later on in their career, those books then sort of, if they do get picked up later on with another book, then it can be like you get it redone.
A director's cut.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, I paid the $7.99 for the unabridged Les Miserables.
Oh, really?
I shouldn't have done. I should have had an edited
the dramatic dramatization, because that would knocks off about 20-30 hours.
Right, there you go. Exactly.
You could have had a bit of singing as well.
I know. Yes. So those commercial, but what I'm saying about the commercial writers is that's how I managed to get into writing and reading, was because of somebody like Bob Mortimer. And if things like Jamie Hewitt or those kind of artists allow people to get into art and go and have a look at an art gallery, then it is good. And I guess they're necessary.
Yeah, I think there's nobody that will doubt that, particularly the publishers, I imagine, the popularity of those books. They're in the soup. You can buy them anywhere. They are. They're in the airport. They're in the supermarkets. They're everywhere. So if that means that someone picks up a book and reads it that doesn't before, then that's great.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. So I'm very pleased I did go to Styles Garage and pay £1 for a second-hand book.
So we did touch on what you're reading now. Have you got anything else that you'd recommend that you've read recently since you've sort of started your reading journey? Is there anything that you'd read recently that you would recommend?
I've read recently The Housemaid.
Is that Frida?
Yes.
Frida McFadden?
Yes, and I thought that was I thought it was quite predictable, the first act and the first half of it, and it was okay. I got along with it. I was like, okay, I don't really know where this is going, but then the twist in the second act is brilliant, absolutely fantastic. I loved it. Not going to spoil that for anybody, but definitely read that. It's just, yes, I just didn't see it coming, and I think, but it almost to the point that they almost lost me in the first half. I was like,
really interesting. She's really. I've got one of her books downstairs. I can't remember which one it is to read, because I've seen a lot in the group that people love her, and I've seen, she's a real favourite on the sort of airport and so I think there's got to be something in it. So I have got one to read. So I will. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people, a lot of fans of hers in the group. I
think what happens is that now that I know what happened, I'm going to expect that to happen every time. And I think that's the same with Black Toad. I think that the feedback has been so amazing that I think that people are just kind of like, oh, this is a one to watch. I want to, if he does the same again, I'm in, almost expecting him to do the same again, which I probably will, but in a different way, from a different lens. So that's quite nice. And then a friend of mine told me that my book was very similar to Tana French, who I knew nothing of.
Oh yeah,
in terms of the whole small town, the small village ideas, the people, the conversations, the dialogue, and for me that was fascinating because the dialogue is really interesting. So I read the search around the hunter. Again, I really liked the dialogue, and I really liked the scene setting, which is probably my best part of Black Toad, isn't it? The scene setting, I think.
Yeah,
For me, it is. But I don't know that I really like the stories as much. But I enjoy. It didn't stop me enjoying them. But there was no. They didn't resonate afterwards. I was like, okay, that's the end. That's fine. I'll get on with the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think that Black Toad does hang around a bit longer. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, definitely. Because quite often when I do the chats, I read the book quite soon before I'm going to do the chat, because I do, I did like 4 in the last week.
Yeah.
So I have to read them sort of quite close to when I'm doing it. Otherwise I forget which one I'm talking about. Whereas this one I read a couple of months ago now, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then so when I was doing my questions at the weekend, and I thought I look back at my review, and then it was just like, bam. So it came back really. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that bit. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's fine. I don't need to read anymore because I remember it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked that, and I think that and I'm striving to make the second one leave that kind of just not just one feeling, but a whole kind of suite of feelings and resonation that you think, oh, what could have happened there? I like that. The lady that did the proofing, Charlie Wilson, her name was. She just kept coming back, even weeks after proofing, going, oh, what's going to happen with that particular person then? And so you're proofing so many things, and it was really interesting that she was still kind of interested about it, and she was still thinking about it. Oh God, what's going to happen to them, and feeling worried for them, and I think that was just because of the characterization. They do come to life quite well.
Yeah, they do. So if anybody wants to, so the Black Toad is out now, and it is available on Amazon. Is it in any sort of local bookshops as well?
I've got it in 4 or 5 local bookshops up here in Sussex. I need to do a little tour of the West Country, which I intend to do soon. But you can now get it on Waterstones and Foils as well on the website.
Oh, brilliant! That's good.
So it's in stock on both of those. I managed to wangle that this week, so it's on there, and
excellent.
Yeah, that's probably your easiest place to go and get it. But because of that, if you've got an indie that you prefer locally, and I'm sure you have, because you like the smell of decaying paper, you can order it by that, because it's coming through gardeners who propagate Waterstones and anything else. So you can they'll be able to order it for you.
So probably through bookshop.org as well, you can get that through.
Yeah, there shouldn't be anywhere that you can't get it now, because gardeners are pushing it out and charging independent bookshops far too much money to buy it.
So what about your the Christmas story? Because you can sign up for that, can't you?
Yes, that's available on Substack, but it's also pre-order on Amazon, and it'll be released on Kindle on the 9th of December. And then I'm going to give it to the independent bookshops. I'm going to run off a few copies so they have it ahead of Amazon for about a week, so people can get a a signed or just a regular paperback for their stocking fillers. And then probably about this, I expect, I'm trying to work out the best way to do this. I expect on about the 16th of December, I will let Amazon have the paperback and start putting that out quickly and with its little curly pages.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Tom. It's been a joy talking to you. So yeah, we'd like to, if you want to come and have a chat with us about book 2 when it's finished, that would be great.
Yes, I'd love to, and absolutely, of course I will, and I will send you a copy of the Kirsten in the post.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind. Yeah, well, I'd love to read that, because I'm much more of a book reader than a on page read. But I was going to wait and see if it came on Kindle, so it is going to come on Kindle, so that's good.
Yeah, it's on Kindle, but I'll get you one in the post so you can have a read of the proper thing as well. We'll do that about the same time. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you everybody for joining us, and join us again soon. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much. Cheerio.
Bye.
Bye.